Hello viewers, today we have solving quadratic equations before us, and the method to be considering is completing the square method. So we have two questions with which we are going to explain completing the square method. And the questions are: solve for the values of x in A, 4x squared plus 16x plus 15 equals 0. And the second question is B, 6x squared minus 15x minus 9 is equals to 0. So we'll be using these two questions to explain the completing the square method very quickly. Alright, for A, we have 4x squared plus 16x plus 15 equals 0. Now, I want to explain each term. This term is called the x squared term because the x is being squared here, so it is called the x squared term. This one is called the x term because it's not carrying square, so it's x term. And this one that is not carrying any variable, it's not carrying x with it, it's called the constant term, the constant term. So again, this is the x squared term, this is the x term, and this is what? The constant term. Now in completing the square method, solving this quadratic equation, the first thing we need to do is to isolate the constant term. And we are going to be having 4x squared plus 16x equals negative 15, because when plus 15 cross to the other side of the equal sign, it becomes minus 15. So we have successfully isolated the constant term in this situation. The next thing to do now is to make the coefficient of x squared to be equals to 1. For now, the coefficient of x squared is 4, so we want to make it to be equals to 1. And what do we do to make it to be equals to 1? We divide through by 4. And dividing 4x squared by 4, of course, will be left with only what? X squared. And that's going to be plus. If you say 16x divided by 4 still, is going to be 4x. It's going to be equals to negative 15 divided by 4 is still going to be negative 15 over 4. In this situation, we have successfully made the coefficient of x squared to be equals to 1. Remember again, the first thing to do is to isolate the constant term. The next thing, if the coefficient of x squared was not 1, then you have to make the coefficient of x squared to be what? To be 1 by dividing through by the coefficient of x squared. That's the second step to take. Now the next thing to do now is we see how to complete the square, which is the real name of the method. How to complete the square, especially on the left hand side. And how do we complete the square on the left hand side? We are going to pick the coefficient of x squared, the coefficient of x here, which is 4. I'll be taking it to the other side of the board. The coefficient of x is 4. So what do I do to this 4? I am going to halve it. That's, I'm going to multiply it by 1 over 2. I'm halving 4. And when I have 4 multiplied by 1 over 2, of course, it's going to give me 4 over 2. And 4 over 2 is equals to what? 2. So I have halved the coefficient of x, which is 2. Now the next thing to do now is I'm going to pick these 2 which I've gotten, and I'm going to square it. That's what I've gotten. I'm going to what? To square it. And having squared it like this, I will now add these 2 square to both sides of this equation that I'm having. And of course, it becomes x squared plus 4x as it was, then plus what I've just gotten, which is what? 2 squared. Let me put it in brackets. There's a reason for that. And that's going to be equal to negative 15 over 4, also plus 2 squared, as I had it before the equal sign. So I'm adding 2 squared to both sides. And how did I get this 2 squared? Remember, I took the coefficient of x and then I halved it. After I halved it, I divided it by 2. Sorry, halved it is dividing by 2, and then I square it. And that's what I'm adding to both sides. So the next thing to do now is I will complete the square on the left hand side, but then I am going to evaluate the right hand side. The word again. I will complete the square on the left hand side and then evaluate the right hand side. So how do I complete the square on the left hand side? This is what I watch. This one is carrying square. This one is also carrying square, but the middle term is not carrying square. So I will only consider the ones that are carrying square. And of course here I have x squared, so I'm going to be writing only x for this one. Then the sign that this middle term is carrying, that's what determines the sign in the middle term here. This sign is plus, so I'm going to have what? Plus here. If it had been minus, then I would have put minus here. So I'm going to have x, then the sign from here, which is plus, and then what I have inside this bracket, that is 2 squares. So definitely it's going to be what? Only 2. Then I will square it. Now look at it again. I pick only the square numbers. X is brought down, 2 is brought down. But then the sign in the middle, that's before the coefficient of x. That is what I use. So I've completed the square on the left hand side, and then I'm going to evaluate the right hand side. And this is negative 15 over 4 plus 2 square actually is what? Is 4. And the coefficient, sorry, the denominator is what? Is 1. So 2 square is 4. Adding the denominator, which is equal to what? 1. So I've completed the square on the left hand side. Let me evaluate fully the right hand side. So in evaluating the right hand side fully, this is what I will be having. I have negative 15 over 4 plus 4 over 1. The LCM of 4 and 1 here is 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1 times negative 15 is negative 15. 4 divided by 1 is 4. 4 times 4 is what? 16. So I have negative 15 plus 16. And that's going to be what? 1 over 4. So in evaluating the right hand side, my solution is going to be 1 over 4. And I'll be transferring this solution to the other side of the board. So I have x plus 2 being squared. X plus 2 in bracket being squared, and that's going to be equal to 1 over 4, which is what I had here from the evaluation of the right hand side. So our work is going to proceed from that point there. Now the next thing to do is this. Since this is being squared and is equated to a number after the equal sign, we are going to take the square root of both sides. And in taking the square root of a number, square root of every number actually is both positive and negative. So that tells me that I'll be having x plus 2 left here. And when I have x plus 2 left, to this side I'm going to be having plus and minus square root of 1 over 4. Because of course, if I give you 9, if I say what is the square root of 9, square root of 9 is both plus 3 and minus 3. Why is that? Because 3 times 3 will give me 9. Negative 3 times negative 3 also is going to give me what? 9. So that is why I need to introduce the what? Plus and minus sign in this case. For that. Now, if x plus 2 is equals to plus and minus root 1 over 4, what am I going to have? So this is going to be plus and minus 1 over 2, because square root of 1 is 1, square root of 4 is 2. And to this other side of the equal sign is going to be what? X plus 2. So our target is to solve for the values of x. It means that 2 is going to leave the place of x at the position of x to come and meet 1 over 2. And in that case, I'm going to be having to be x equals to, if plus 2 cross to the other side, becomes what? Minus 2 plus and minus 1 over 2. Of course, these are the solutions, but we still need to break them down. So if these are the values of x, then we can say x1 is actually negative 2 plus 1 over 2. And x2 will be equal to negative 2 still. Now this time around minus 1 over 2. So what have I done here? I try to break down this plus and minus sign into their individual parts. Plus is standing alone and then the minus is standing alone. But every other thing remains the same. Now, if I have minus 2 plus 1 over 2, what is that going to give to me? Because the denominator of minus 2 is going to be 1 and their LCM is going to be 2, because LCM of 2 and 1 is 1. Is 2 rather. 2 divided by 1 is 2. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Plus 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. So negative 4 plus 1 is going to be negative 3. So it implies that our x1 is negative 3 over 2. Now to the other side, what I'm having is going to be over 1 here. And then by the LCM is going to be 2 also. 2 divided by 2. Sorry, 2 divided by 1 is 2. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Negative 4, negative 1 is going to give us negative 5. Therefore, x2 is going to be equals to negative 5 over 2. So that is the solution, or those are the solutions to question letter A. The values of x for which this expression to this other side is equals to 0 are negative 3 over 2 and negative 5 over 2. So we'll proceed very quickly to question number 2. Alright, we have the B part. I must say very quickly that I took the A part very slowly because it's the first time I was explaining it. But this B part is going to be very fast. So please stay tuned. Alright, as before, 6x squared minus 15x minus 9 equals 0. This is the term in x squared, this is the term in x, and this is the constant term, which is equals to 0. So the first thing, like we did before, is to isolate the constant term. So we'll be having 6x squared minus 15x equals 9. So we have isolated this constant term. The next thing to make the coefficient of x to be equals to 1. And in achieving that, we are going to have in x squared minus 15 over 6x equals 9 over 6. And of course, something can divide 15 and 6, something can divide 9 and 6. So we can reduce that to the lowest term. That's going to be x squared minus 5 over 3x equals 3 over 2. If you like, you can work with this already. If you like, you can divide them so that you can work with the simplest time rather. So 3 in 6 is going to be 2, not 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2, 15 divided by 3 is 5, 9 divided by 3 is 3, 6 divided by 3 is 2. So we have isolated the constant time and then we have divided by 2. The next thing to do is I'm going to take the coefficient of x. This time around, the coefficient of x is negative 5 over 2. And like I did before, I'm going to halve it, multiply by 1 over 2, and that's going to give me minus 5 over 4. And when I have this minus 5 over 4, what do I do with it? I am going to have minus 5 over 4 to be squared. And it is this square I'm going to add to the two sides of the equation. So I'll be having x squared minus 5 over 2x plus, then we open a bracket, negative 5 over 2 being squared equal to 3 over 2 plus, like before, negative 5 over 2 being squared. So having gotten to those points, now the next thing I need to do is to complete the square on the left hand side and then evaluate the right hand side. So for me, try to complete the square on the left hand side. I'm going to pick x. That's going to be x. And now the sign here is negative. That's minus. So it's going to be minus. And then to this other side, I'm having what? 5 over 2. So it's just going to be what? 5 over 2 being squared. That's going to be equal to. So I'm going to be evaluating the right hand side. That's going to be 3 over 2 plus, when it is being squared, this square is going to deal with the negative sign, and then of course 5 over 2 square is going to be 25 over 4. When I evaluate this, if I find the LCM over 4 and 2 is going to be 4, and 4 divided by 2 is 2, 2 times 3 is going to be 6. 4 divided by 4 is 1, 1 times 25 is going to be 25. So 6 plus 25 is going to be equals to 31 over 4 by that evaluation. So I'll be having x minus 5 over 2 being squared. So I need to take this side out. Now, if I have x minus 5 being squared, what do I need for this case? So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And in taking the square root of both sides, we're having x minus 5 over 2 equals plus and minus square root of 31 over 4. So when I do that, in evaluating, I'm going to remove this from the bracket sign. That's going to be x minus 5 over 2 on its own equals plus and minus square root of 31. 31 is not a perfect square, so it's still going to be square root of 31 but then 4 under is a perfect square. Square root of 4 is going to be equal to 2. So 4 is no longer, sorry, the 2 is no longer what? In the square root sign, because the square root of 4 is going to be equal to 2. But then 31 remains in the square root sign because it's not the perfect square. So what do I do? Use minus 5 over 2 cross to the other side so that I can make x to stand alone. So x will now be equal to, if minus crosses, it becomes plus. So that's going to be 5 over 2. Pardon? 5 over 2 plus and minus square root of 31 over 2. And of course, the two denominators are exactly the same thing. So it means that my x1, if I try to break them down, is going to be 5 plus root 31 over 2. And x2 is going to be 5 minus root 31 over 2. So these are the two solutions. These are the two values of x that satisfy the condition for this second question. But of course, if you have your calculator to find for the value square root of 31, you can use your calculator. Whatever value it gives to you, square root of 31 is going to be between 5 and 6. So it's definitely going to be 5 point something. So you are going to add whatever value you have got for square root of 31 to 5 and then divide the result by 2. I give you specifically the values of the value of x1. Do the same for the square root of 31 is going to be 5 point something. So 5 minus that value is going to be a negative number. When you divide it by 2, it still brings you down to the other value of what, x2. But if you don't have access to calculator, this solution format is still acceptable. So those are the two questions solved for completing the square method under quadratic equations. Thank you.